The all-new 22 Civic, now on sale at Team Honda on Siegen Lane.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling. Nothing could ever bring me down. Nothing could ever bring me down. Taste the feeling.
They said I could find you here. Why are you fishing? Our company's got to ship out 2 full color brochures and 20 color copies. You're killing me.
It's done. Designed, printed, packaged, and shipped.
How?
You just got to know the right people. Baker Printing, the printing people.
How come you get to fish in this private lake?
Like I said, you just got to know the right people. You can know the right people too.
Hello guys, it's Debbie. It's time. I've got a brand new location. 10510 Airline Highway, Baton Rouge, next to After 5 Tuxedos. We have the perfect spot to get all your wedding and formal wear needs. Come see our one-of-a-kind name brand and get great prices. With 30 years experience, the best customer service anywhere. It's Debbie's Bridal, Airline Highway, Baton Rouge. See you soon.
Hello and welcome as we start today's edition of the Clarence Bug Show. Here's hoping all is well with you and yours in your world. Since the last opportunity we had to spend a little time with you on the day before. We start today's show, as we normally do, with Louisiana news, starting here in the capital city. Yesterday, another troubling incident happening in the public school system. You are probably aware of the situation in Arlington, where a minor brought a weapon to school and, according to family members, because of being bullied and no response from the administration, wounded 4 people at the school. Well, at my old high school, here in the capital city, Glen Oaks High School, a 9th grader, 14-year-old, arrested after bringing a loaded gun to campus. The sheriff's office says the gun was found in the backpack of a 9th grade student at Glen Oaks High School during a random bag search. He reportedly left the bag containing the firearm, his book bag, on the bus. The teenager, now charged with illegally carrying a firearm on school property and violation of a firearm-free zone. Fortunately, no threats had been reported for the school. You know, this is troubling on a number of fronts. Number one, this is a 14-year-old, and the parents of the student in Arlington said that they weren't condoning what their minor child did, but it was in response to bullying and a lack of a response from the school's administration. In this case, with the 9th grader having the gun in his backpack and leaving the backpack on the bus, it kind of, conventional wisdom would say, does away with the argument that it was for protection from bullying. If, in fact, that were the case, you certainly would not have left it on the bus. Additionally, it makes you wonder how serious this individual was about learning, accomplishing the mission of going to school if you leave your backpack with your books, your homework, resource materials, everything else on the bus. Thirdly, there is, of course, the angle of what are the parents doing? How did they not know that this individual had access to and possession of a firearm? Now listen, y'all, at the end of the day, for me, as a conservative, it all starts with personal responsibility and proper parenting. Pure and simple. And sadly, we have seen so many instances in today's society where parents are so concerned with being their child's friend that they're not being parents anymore. You know, I guess I understand that it's a different day and we have been brainwashed into thinking, well, they're minors, but, you know, they have civil liberties and civil rights and things of that nature. I have no qualms at all, because the way I was raised, my parents had no problem going through book bags, going through your closet, underneath your bed, as long as you were under their roof and their responsibility. They were going to make sure that they knew every single thing that was in that home that you had access to. Not only that, but outside the home as well. They knew who your friends were, who your friends' parents were, who the teachers were. And as a result, we didn't see problems of this sort. Again, it is a different day, and, you know, we operate under different standards these days. But the fact of the matter is, this is a minor. And at the end of the day, having access to firearms, I would say, I'm tempted to say, if we don't get a handle on this, it's going to get out of control. It already is. All you have to do is look at the statistics. Look at the number of individuals charged with deadly crimes, illegally possessing weapons, and the ages of these individuals are constantly getting lower and lower and lower. I, as a conservative, am one of those that is staunchly for less government intrusion in our lives. But at the end of the day, and you've heard me coin this phrase and use it incessantly, when you fail to govern yourself, you in essence consent to be governed. Word to the wise is supposed to be sufficient. In other Louisiana news, speaking of problems plaguing our state, the opioid crisis continues to run amok in our state. There is some good news in that regard, and we'll have to wait to see how this all unfolds. But our state is set to receive $18 million a year for the next 18 years to help all 64 parishes combat the opioid epidemic. To qualify for a share of this money, local governments in each parish will have to pass an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, before being allowed to receive funds and process those funds into, hopefully, finding and combating this problem. It is something that has gotten totally out of control. If you've been watching, you know that here in East Baton Rouge Parish, opioid use and resulting deaths in the past few years has skyrocketed. 2 years ago, 126 people OD'd on opioids in East Baton Rouge Parish. In 2020, that number doubled. As of September of this year, 214 deaths from opioid overdoses have been recorded in East Baton Rouge Parish. It is one of those things where if you find yourself at this point in time saying, well, I sympathize with these people, Clarence, but it really doesn't affect me because I live in a good part of town. Nobody in my family is using them. Well, just keep breathing, because coming soon to a neighborhood near you, coming soon to a family member near you is going to be this problem. And listen, y'all, this is one of those problems that has no restriction on age, race, gender, socioeconomic status, none of that. This is something that affects us all. And at the end of the day, if you are so fortunate as to say, nobody in my family, nobody at work, nobody in my circle of friends has been affected by it, one, count your blessings. Two, just keep living. It's coming. Again, there are no barriers to this. You cannot say, well, I'm white, it's not going to happen. Or I'm black, not going to happen. Or I'm Republican, it's not going to happen. I'm Democrat, not going to happen. It cuts across all races, ages, gender, socioeconomic status. It affects us all. And quite frankly, an individual suffering from this, y'all accept this in the spirit that it's given. If it were just that person being affected, that might be a different story. But we have been extremely fortunate, not to downplay in any way, shape, or form the in excess of 200 folks that have lost their lives already. But can you imagine, worst case scenario, and we've seen this happen, an individual driving down the interstate, shooting up an opioid, they lose consciousness at 60, 70 miles an hour, careen off a retaining wall into a tanker carrying 10,000 pounds of some flammable or toxic chemical. And now we have a major catastrophe and loss of life on our hands. Sadly, in every single one of these incidents, someone, family member, co-worker, in the circle of friends, knew this person had a problem and didn't intervene or steer that individual to the resources out there to help. And I know what some of y'all are saying, Clarence, a lot of these people, you can't help them until they hit rock bottom. You can't help a person that doesn't want to help themselves. I get all that. But at the end of the day, again, in most instances, it's not just that person that ends up being affected. In the grand scheme of things, it affects us all. Just saying. First break of today's show. We'll get it out of the way. We'll soldier on. Talking more with you on the Clarence Bugg Show, only on the Pelican. Stay close.
I owe owed the IRS $10,000.
The IRS garnished my wages.
They put a lien on my house.
I'm self-employed and didn't report all my income. They claim I owe a lot more than I do.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency in the world. They do not give up until you pay.
I couldn't sleep. We were being audited. I called Tax Solutions Now, and a great big weight was lifted off my shoulders.
I called Tax Solutions Now, and they got the IRS off my back.
Tax Solutions Now had my wage garnishment lifted in 48 hours.
Tax Solutions Now can get you help. Our agents know the rules, can stop the pain, and get you the best deal.
Tax Solutions Now saved my business.
I qualified for the Fresh Start program. I paid less than I owed.
We connect you with a team of former IRS agents and tax professionals who get the IRS off your back. Time is running out. Call Tax Solutions now.
Call 800-778-4345. 800-778-4345.
Live and play on the fairway at Greystone Golf and Country Club, a serene, challenging golf destination located in Denham Springs. For tee times and membership opportunities, go to GreystoneCountryClub.com.
Go where summer leads you in an award-winning Mazda CUV. Find yours during Mazda's season of discovery.
Call, click, or come by and discover your new Mazda today at Baton Rouge's Mazda dealer, Team Mazda on Airline.
Bolello's Furniture and Appliances, your dependable independent. Depend on us for service, for selection, for price. Get huge Whirlpool savings. Shop now and save on Whirlpool appliances throughout the store. Plus, experience our price match guarantee and ask about special financing. You can depend on the know-how of people who live appliances every day. Bolello's Furniture and Appliances, your dependable independent with nationwide buying power.
Hi, I'm Bobby Yarborough with Mandafine Meats. Here at Manda, we know what the folks of South Louisiana love. They love great flavored smoked sausage, delicious deli meats, and specialty items like boudin and andouille sausage. Mandafine Meats has been providing these products since 1947. We produce them right here in Baton Rouge, so you know you're always getting the freshest product at your local grocery store. Mandafine Meats. Taste the fresh local flavor in everything we make. Make it Manda every time.
Welcome back to today's edition of the Clarence Bug Show. You know, as an American who relishes the idea of America being the, quote, leader of the free world, it is particularly painful to watch the actions of the current administration. I understand when it comes to polls that many of you are of the opinion, well, Clarence, I don't put a whole lot of faith in polls because, you know, you can make a poll say pretty much anything you want it to say, particularly depending on who you ask and how you pose the question. And there would be some validity to that. But a new Quinnipiac University poll released just yesterday shows more than half of the American public, adults, I should throw in there as well, believe that Joe Biden and the current administration are not competent to run the government. Now, here's what I found particularly interesting, because I know what you're going to say. Those of the liberal persuasion will say, well, you got to understand, Clarence, if you divide the country in half, if it's, 60% or 55% liberal, 45% are conservative, and the rest are independents, you're going to have, numbers right around 55%. Well, 55% of those polled American adults say that the Biden administration is incompetent to run government. 42% say they are competent. What I found particularly interesting, as you might imagine, 94% of Republicans say that this administration is not competent. Looking at inflation, looking at the explosion in crime, looking at the border situation, looking at Afghanistan, and the list of things goes on and on and on. They're not competent. On the other hand, however, Democrats, as you might imagine, are on the other side of the fence. 85% of Democrats say the administration is competent versus 13% of Democrats who say this administration is not. That pretty much is what you would expect. Democrats lean one way, Republicans lean another way. So that leaves us with the remainder of Americans who identify as independents or no party. 62% of those who identify as independents don't have a dog in the hunt, conservative or liberal, one way or the other. 62% of them say that this administration is not competent. That's bothersome, y'all, particularly for a guy that grew up in a country where, if nothing else, at the end of the day, regardless of what was transpiring in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our communities at large, if nothing else, we had faith in our government. We felt good about the direction the country was going in and the response and the adherence to our voices from those we had elected to serve us. Of course, now, when you think about it, it's not all that hard to figure out why so many Americans are now of the opinion that this current administration is not competent. For example, have you been to the gas pump recently? Well, let me rephrase that. Have you paid attention at the gas pump? And it's almost impossible not to. Here's why. The needle on the gas gauge, you know from sheer habit that when you put X dollars of gas in your car, your truck, your SUV, Mighty, and your motorcycle, you know how far the needle is supposed to move. Have you noticed lately how far the needle moves when you put in your car X dollars of gasoline that you normally put in? Well, it was reported this week that we are now paying the highest prices for gasoline in the last 7 years. Some cities, thank God I live in a petroleum-producing state, in some cities, they are currently paying $5 a gallon. Now, let's circle back to where this conversation started. A majority of Americans feel this administration is not competent to run government. In other words, they don't know what the hell they're doing. What? Here's validity to that. What was the first freaking thing this administration did upon taking office? Cancel the Keystone XL pipeline. We, prior to this administration, courtesy of the Trump administration, we had achieved energy independence. We didn't need oil and gas from anybody else. Matter of fact, we had so much, we were selling. After Americans used what they needed, we had enough left over to sell to other folks. Now, we find ourselves begging OPEC, would y'all please put some more out there on the market so that we could try to keep the prices down for Americans? And of course, what did OPEC say? Yeah, fat chance on that happening, buddy. Yeah, that's for you, Joe. Incompetence. So it really, shouldn't be all that big a surprise. Meanwhile, speaking of incompetence and cover from the mainstream media, y'all do realize, even though the media has done the old bait and switch, they throw this sensational story out there to get you to look over here, and they throw this sensational story out there to get you to look over there. You do realize that it is now day 36 of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and there are still Americans trapped in Afghanistan. As a matter of fact, just in one county in California, which has a heavy American Afghan population, 38 students, school children, are stranded in Afghanistan. Do you find it funny, sad, interesting, ironic that the Biden administration has not said a word about the Americans that are still trapped there? You don't really think this administration got all Americans out, do you? You can't be that stupid. Well, if you worship at the altar of CNN LOL, you probably are. If you get your information from MSLSD, you probably are. If you get your information from ABC News, NBC News, CBS, you probably are. 38 school-age children just from one county in California are still stranded in Afghanistan, and not a peep from this administration. So when you see the poll that says a majority of Americans feel this administration is not competent to run government, really shouldn't be that big of a surprise. Now, let me say for the record, as a God-fearing, flag-waving, NASCAR-loving American, I'm not surprised, but I am sorely disappointed. Not so much in this administration, because I've been doing this a long time, y'all. I've been watching this stuff, reporting on it, covering it for over 40 years now. So I knew ahead of time, coming into this thing, that Joe Biden was one of the least competent individuals on the planet. I knew this. I knew Kamala Harris's background. And we tried to tell you what we were getting into, but no, y'all called us all kind of ugly names, put up all kind of memes with, conservatives with their heads wrapped in tinfoil, called us all kind of conspiracy theorists and the like. And here it is today. Day 37 of the hostage crisis, the media not saying a word. The Biden administration not saying a word. Of course, now, it might have a little bit of something to do with the fact that they're so busy screwing up the border situation. They're so busy screwing up the crime problem. They're so busy screwing up our energy independence, they're just completely forgotten about our poor fellow Americans that are left stranded as hostages. And yet, If you ask Joe, he'll tell you 81 million people voted for me. Wink, wink. Bottom of the hour break. We'll get it done. Come back and talk more with you right where you've got it on the Clarence Bug Show, only on the Pelican. Stay close.
Got termites? Get Premier Pest. PremierPestServices.com.
Hi, I am Dr. Farrell Frugier Jr., and I am a general dentist at Frugier Family Dentistry. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to Catholic High School, LSU, and LSU School of Dentistry in New Orleans, where I received my DDS degree in 1986. I always have and will continue to be committed to continuing my education, to invest in technology which makes the diagnosis and delivery of dentistry more thorough, more comfortable, and more aesthetically pleasing. In our practice, we are here to serve the patients. We want to improve their quality of life and to develop relationships with our patients. In dentistry, we have a chance to impact lives on a daily basis, not just by doing dentistry, but by getting to know them and being a part of their life. We also believe in giving back to our community. So every year, we give back to the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank, Toys for Tots, and Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center. Please stop by and visit our office. We would love to take care of you and your family.
Hi, I'm Hurricane Betsy Barnes.
And I'm Dr. Kay Siller with The Rocket Right Show.
We are two busy blondes on the go showing off life in Louisiana.
Watch us on Pelican Sports Network.
And Talk 107.3 FM. Check local listings for times.
Hello guys, it's Debbie. It's time. I've got a brand new location. 10510 Airline Highway, Baton Rouge, next to After 5 Tuxedos. We have the perfect spot to get all your wedding and formal wear needs. Come see our one-of-a-kind name brand and get great prices. With 30 years experience, the best customer service anywhere. It's Debbie's Bridal, Airline Highway, Baton Rouge. See you soon.
Caught spiders?
Premier Pest Services.
Welcome back to today's edition of the Clarence Bug Show. You know, to piggyback on the last segment, it's no big surprise the majority of Americans feel that this current administration is totally incompetent to handle government. Has anybody wondered why we have yet to hear of a plan to deal with the situation at our border? Remember the Vice President, Kamala Harris, on the taxpayer dime, took this trip to Central America to deal with the, what does she call it, Marty? The root causes of the problem. Has anybody heard a plan yet that's come out to deal with this? Meanwhile, it's estimated that a minimum 125,000 Haitian immigrants are now in Mexico making their way to our southern border. Now, when government tells you, we estimate it's 125,000, that means it's probably about 300,000 to 400,000, because you know how government works. I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Oh my God, Jesus help us. And yet, we haven't heard a morsel of what the plan is to deal with the root causes, much less secure the border. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of folks that they didn't test for COVID, that they didn't vaccinate for COVID, have been shipped all around the country. Most of them in the dead of night, and we have no earthly clue where they went. Now, call me a conspiracy theorist, call me anti-liberal, call me whatever you want. I've been called it all. Over the course of 40 years, the good thing about being old school, you don't care what people think. Not if you're telling the truth. When you tell the truth, it has its own reward. You don't care what the Democrats / liberals / progressives call you or what they think about you, because you know that they're living in la-la land. So the last thing that you're going to be bothered by is what they think. But as an American who loves this country, our freedoms, our liberties, to watch it be torn down in this fashion is bothersome, to say the least. And speaking of bothersome things, and a government that most of us now feel is incompetent, have you seen how the federal government is now weaponizing the Department of Justice and the FBI in trying to intimidate, and silence the voices of parents who register objections to critical race theory? This, folks, is as scary as it gets. For people of my ilk, baby boomers, this is the kind of stuff that only happens in China. Squashing dissenting opinions. This is the kind of stuff that only happens in freaking Russia. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, why is it that the mainstream media, and for God, social media, why are they so afraid of dissenting opinions? Do they think that Americans are so stupid that we'll believe anything that's put out there? You know, as an American, I have faith in my fellow Americans that we can look at this opinion, this other opinion, another opinion, and then we can do our research and we can come to the correct conclusion, or at least a conclusion that we feel is best for ourselves, our families, and our loved ones. We don't need some yahoo to decide what I should or should not be able to say. It starts to make me wonder, maybe you got something to hide. Maybe you don't want me to know the truth. When you start deciding you are going to be the ultimate arbiter of the truth, Houston, we got a problem, y'all. Because at the end of the day, the truth is what the truth is. It doesn't matter if a Democrat tells you the truth. It doesn't matter if a Republican tells you the truth. It doesn't matter if a white person tells you the truth. It doesn't matter if a black person tells you the truth. The truth is what the truth is. End of discussion. But now, social media, mainstream media, somewhere along the road, they've become of the opinion they should be the ones to determine what's truth. Remember, we talked not long ago about this nut job professor at a university in California who told his students and anybody else who would listen, mathematics is racist and mathematics is not finite. Now, I might have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. I don't care what universe you are in or from. 1 + 1 is 2. This clown, teaching in a university, told us with a straight face, 1 + 1 is not necessarily 2. Okay, I want to hear you out just to make me giggle. Tell me why 1 and 1 is not 2. Well, according to this professor, if you have 1 hen and 1 rooster, put them together, come back the next day, and they have 1 chick. Now, 1 + 1 = 3. Really? So let me get this straight. If I take this same hen and the same rooster, and they have 2 chicks, now you're going to tell me 1 + 1 is 4? If they have 3 chicks, then 1 + 1 is 5. So apparently, there is no correct answer, according to this clown, for 1 + 1. Now, this individual, a college professor, mind you, of course it is California, the granola state, take out the fruits and the flakes, ain't nothing left but the nuts. He conveniently leaves out the most important factor in the equation, something called reproduction. And this guy is teaching the future. This guy. And you know, there's an old saying, everything that comes up does not need to come out. I'll go you one better. There's another saying, it's often better to have people think you're a fool than it is to open your mouth and remove all doubt. This guy had no problem shouting this stupidity to the entire world. And at the end of the day, this clown is going to shape, make, and mold the minds of the future of this country. Now, the Department of Justice, the FBI, they are being marshaled to try and intimidate and silence people who are against the teaching of critical race theory. Y'all, these are troubling times in this country. And you don't have to be Einstein to go back through this country's history and realize there are certain principles, ideas, and ideals that have served us well. There are certain philosophies, principles, ways of doing things that have brought us to the point of being the greatest country in the history of the human species. And now, because we have allowed these individuals to infiltrate just about every segment of society and all the institutions of importance, we now find ourselves questioning whether or not 1 + 1 = 2. When we get to that point, y'all, we're about this far away from sticking a fork in us, because we're done. Hopefully, prayerfully, there are still enough real Americans that possess enough common sense to put a halt to this foolishness before it's too late. Just saying. Final break of today's show. We'll get her done, come back, put that big old pretty bow on this puppy, and we wrap up today's edition of the Clarence Bug Show, only on the Pelican. Stay close.
Hi, I'm Bobby Yarborough with Mandafine Meats. Here at Manda, we know what the folks of South Louisiana love. They love great flavored smoked sausage, delicious deli meats, and specialty items like boudin and andouille sausage. Mandafine Meats has been providing these products since 1947. We produce them right here in Baton Rouge, so you know you're always getting the freshest product at your local grocery store. Mandafine Meats. Taste the fresh local flavor in everything we make. Make it Manda every time.
Live and play on the fairway at Greystone Golf and Country Club, a serene, challenging golf destination located in Denham Springs. For tee times and membership opportunities, go to GreysstoneCountryClub.com.
Tremonti's has meat. Tremonti's has seafood. Tremonti's has much more. Tailgating and home gating platters. Huge wine and liquor selection. Beer and all the spices you need. Chairman Reserve and Wagyu meats. Ribeye rolls, shrimp rolls, kebabs. 20 flavors of sausage for the grill. Daily lunch specials and game processing. On-site catering also available. Good meat ain't cheap and cheap meat ain't good. Visit Tremonti's.com.
Sometimes life is wonderful, and sometimes it's not. Cherish the good, but always be prepared for life's challenges. At Private Healthcare, we provide the peace of mind you deserve. With Private Healthcare, you'll get the coverage you want and healthcare you need. If your employer doesn't supply healthcare coverage and you don't qualify for Medicare or Medicaid, you need to give us a call right now. Private Healthcare is private health insurance for ages 65 and under with medical, dental, vision, and even prescription coverage. When life comes at you unexpectedly, you need to be ready. And health insurance is your financial safety net. Health insurance has never been so easy and affordable. If you're looking for health coverage at the best price and your annual household income is $35,000 or more, call the number on the screen now and speak with a live healthcare consultant. Don't wait. Get the coverage you need now.
Welcome back to the final segment of today's edition of the Clarence Bug Show. Speaking of incompetence in our federal government, we knew it wasn't going to be long. We knew. And you can conceivably make the argument when you're talking about this much stuff, it was bound to happen. You know, over the course of the 20 years that we spent in Afghanistan, we spent more than $83 billion on weaponry. Your money. And a huge chunk of that was to equip and arm the Afghan National Army. And of course, we all sadly now know that a huge chunk of that investment is now in the hands of people who hate us, people who would love nothing more than to kill as many Americans as possible. It's now, you're right, Marty. We're good at leaving stuff behind, even our fellow Americans. Different show for a different day. Now, the New York Times is reporting that American armaments are now on display for sale in Afghan gun stores. They published pictures of handguns, 9mm, ammunition, rifles, night vision goggles and binoculars, all on sale in Afghan gun stores. What is immensely scary about this is that during the course of this 20-year run in Afghanistan, of the $83 billion of your money that was spent there, more than 75,000 military vehicles are there. Nearly 600,000 weapons and more than 200 aircraft. Now, it's not that big a stretch to think if these weapons are being sold in Afghan gun stores, conventional wisdom would say it's a pretty safe bet just about all of this stuff has, in some form or fashion, to whatever degree, found its way into the hands of more of our enemies. The Chinese, the Russians, Iranians, all of whom would be more than happy to look at the weapons of war that America has developed, reverse engineer them, and then come up with their own to manufacture, if not make more deadly. Meanwhile, the New York Times pointed out in this article that President Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, admitted to them, quote, "The administration does not have a complete picture of how many arms and how much equipment was left behind during the withdrawal." He did admit that, quote, "a fair amount of U.S. arms has fallen into the hands of the Taliban." See, this is what happens, y'all, when you get addicted to opium. Not OPIUM, not that, not the narcotic, not the opioid. OPM, other people's money. Do you think for 1 second if a considerable portion of this $83 billion had come out of Nancy Pelosi's pocket, or Joe Biden's pocket, or Kamala Harris's pocket, do you think for 1 second they would not demand a massive accounting of all this U.S. military armament that was simply handed over to the Afghanis and now is in the hands of the Taliban? That's rhetorical. You don't have to answer. We all know the answer to that question. Sadly, just so you know, I'm not picking just on the Biden-Harris administration. The fact of the matter is, this has been going on for decades. Remember the Pentagon scandal about the government paying $640 for a toilet seat? Remember that one? How many hundreds of dollars did they spend on a hammer or a screwdriver? Of course, now, you can make the argument that's what happens when you're spending other people's money. But you can also make the argument that's what happens when the American public falls asleep at the wheel. See, it's obvious to me when we found out that the Pentagon is spending $640 for a toilet seat, we didn't raise enough hell. We didn't. Had we raised enough hell, we would not now be looking at American instruments of war being sold on the open market in Afghan gun stores. Oh, and on top of that, we still have God knows how many American citizens still stranded in a hostage situation in Afghanistan. And yet, what was the number I told you? 80+% of Democrats, according to the poll, think this administration is competent. If you believe that, Marty has a beachfront mountaintop brothel in Port Allen that he'll let you have, including workers, real cheap. If you believe that, not only have you been asleep at the wheel, you are still asleep. Not just asleep, snoring, drooling all over the pillow. Don't even hear the alarm clock when it goes off. You the problem. Hopefully, much sooner rather than later, you'll wake up. I just hope that it won't be too late. 10655 Coursey Boulevard. Old School Barbecue is where we tape the show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Matter of fact, on Wednesday, Uncle Roy, everybody's favorite crazy uncle, records his podcast immediately after yours truly's show. And he would love to see you. I would love to see you. Got a hankering for some old school barbecue? This is the place you want to be. 10655 Coursey Boulevard. Come on out, meet some great people, eat some great food, and have a great time. End of discussion. If you hadn't been here yet, and you're okay with living a deprived life, I ain't mad at you. But when you're ready to up your game, 10655 Coursey Boulevard, that's the place to be. My time's up, y'all, and I gotta go. But again, this day, just like so many others, I give it to you. You're right. America, we're not perfect. But for this old boy's money, it's the best there is. And God knows there's no place else on his green earth that I'd rather be. Speaking of the good Lord, you know he loves you, and I do too. Either way, ain't a doggone thing you can do about either one. Take care.